Hello and welcome to the changing landscape of payroll moving to the cloud. I would like to introduce you to your first presenter for today, Mr. Laurent Botella, Director of Product Strategy with Workday. Mr. Botella, you have the floor.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar on the changing landscape of payroll and how it is impacted by the cloud. My name is Laurent Botella, and I am in charge of the product strategy for the payroll and time tracking products at Workday. I have been with Workday for 2 years, and my background is in the ERP and HR outsourcing space. I spent 12 years at PeopleSoft, and prior that, I spent 3 years, and after that, I spent 3 years at Fidelity Investment, and 1 year at Infosys BPO, where I was in charge of the strategy of the global HR and payroll outsourcing solution. I am glad today to be joined by Yvette Cameron. Yvette and I had the pleasure to work together a few years ago when we were both at PeopleSoft. Yvette, I will let you introduce yourself.
Great. Thank you, Laurent. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Yvette Cameron, and I am with Constellation Research. I'll tell you a little bit about our organization. Constellation Research is a specialty research and advisory firm. We serve business leaders who are looking to unleash the power of emerging and disruptive technologies. We really cater to the executives and the line of business leaders who are looking for an edge in business model and technology innovation, where our clients are really focused on combining the disruptive and traditional technologies to give them answers to tough business questions. My personal background, I have been in the HCM space for about 25 years. Similar to Laurent, my background is in ERP and outsourcing. I have spent 15 years in the product space working for organizations such as SAP, Oracle, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and smaller niche players. My focus has spanned most topics in HCM, including BPO outsourcing. Interestingly, I also spent 12 years as an HR practitioner managing a shared service center and working very closely with all of your divisions across HCM. So I'm very happy to bring all that experience forward in my new role here at Constellation Research. So we're going to be talking today about the changing landscape of payroll. But before we get into the agenda, I wanted to really start off this conversation talking about your pressure points. In the organization of payroll administration, there are tremendous pressures. Obviously, you are very focused on and challenged by trying to ensure quality of services and timeliness and accuracy and risk mitigation. But there are so many other pressures now coming into the payroll organization. Organizations today are complaining that their systems are taking too long. They're being challenged by other technologies coming into the organization. They're spending too much time validating and correcting data, even if that data is coming from their service providers. They're struggling sometimes to apply and keep up with the many, many changes that are coming in through legislative changes and the frequency of those. And seemingly, requests from senior leadership oftentimes come through as fire drills, as opposed to payroll administrators being ready with the data at their fingertips to answer the questions of their leadership regarding local and global issues. So, really curiously, the question here is, are these pressure points yours? And if so, you're not uncommon from what else the industry is experiencing. What we found is that yesterday's technology strengths, very valid. We have spent many years, 20, 30, 40 years, building and automating processes, building systems to make sure that those processes are fully automated, improving our standardization, both within our local processes, perhaps in the U.S., standardizing processes across the globe where possible, and really building and working in systems that are great at capturing and managing large volumes of data. But the reality is, in today's environment, we are finding that the demands of the business are increasing, our IT budgets are shrinking, and we are facing new challenges that we haven't had to face before. One of those is real-time agility and flexibility. We've always, of course, had to respond to changes in staffing levels and mergers and acquisitions, and certainly in payroll, the compliance issues. But greater challenges are coming now today as far as overall business operations and the ability to make changes and shift our directions on a dime. New business models, greater business insights from this massive amount of data that's coming from new systems. It is time to start thinking about new ways of doing business, while at the same time we're always keeping our eye on the ball. specifically in payroll, that we are ensuring that our systems are delivering quality solutions, we're optimizing our costs, and on every possibility looking to mitigate risk, financial risk, operational risk, and so forth. And at the same time, we want to make sure that as administrative, as leaders, that we're maintaining the control and the flexibility and insight to the systems that we're using at all times. So our goals for today, we're going to be talking for about the next 50 minutes, and we're going to be looking at first really understanding the growth of the cloud in the enterprise. And what does it mean for payroll operations? We're going to focus specifically on probably the top 6 benefits of SaaS. There are many, but I want to explore some of those benefits and how they specifically apply into the payroll organization. We're going to look also at some of the considerations for single versus multi-country payroll processes, and again, how SaaS applies to traditional approaches versus emerging approaches. We're going to wrap up today's session looking at some of the clients of Workday, our sponsor today, and how they're approaching some of these shifts in the industry that we're experiencing. So I want to start off really quickly just kind of highlighting some of the major forces of change in the organization. Certainly from an economic perspective, a global financial crisis, our slow recovery from that crisis, the emergence of new business models and new competition as the business across the world becomes more boundaryless. It's really forced some important decisions and discussions within organizations. Specifically, leaders are looking at their cost models, they're looking at the assets of the organization, they're looking at their core business processes, and they're asking, what makes sense? Right? The HR, the financial, the payroll, and other core systems, what makes sense to keep in-house? What should we outsource? Should we look at outsourcing IT or services? Where shall we focus our limited resources? What makes the most sense? And, that's bringing up in today's environment some new answers that weren't possible in years past. If you look at the people perspective, our workforce, certainly we've an increasingly dispersed, highly digitized workforce. They're always connected. The new generation of workforce is always looking for access to information when, where, and however they want to access it on any device. And certainly this is driving a lot of expectations into how people are interacting with the technologies of their organization. Things like the expectations around mobility or easy access to information applies across all technologies that your employees are using, including how are they getting access to their payroll benefits, time and labor, and other information across the organization. And certainly, if you haven't experienced it already, there's a tremendous rise of what we call free agents or the contingent workforce. It's expected that by 2020, approximately 40% of workers will be contingent workers, free agents. What this means for the payroll organization is new considerations in how you're flexing up your systems and your processes, and handling workflows and approval routings, et cetera, around payment and scheduling and processing of these various workers. So business processes are certainly changing. Additionally, I guess I'll mention that the rise of some of these free agents, the rise of these mobile technologies, is causing us to take a more fluid approach to the business workflows that we have within our organization. Technology is certainly driving a lot of these changes, but it's also the enabler of a lot of these changes. The consumerization of mobile, social, and cloud-based technologies means that companies are facing demands for similar experiences and, as I said, access to information that you get in the consumer world. And so really, when you take all of these things together, it all begs one question. Are you ready as an organization? Are your payroll solutions meeting the needs of your organization today, and are they going to meet the needs of your organization as it faces major challenges across the type of people working in the organization, the types of business decisions that they're trying to solve, the new territories perhaps that the organization wants to go into? Is your technology flexible enough and agile enough to support these emerging changes? The technology landscape itself is absolutely changing. There's a lot of M&A going on in the marketplace today. And of course what that means is that the providers of yesterday look very different from the providers of today. Many are embracing cloud-based applications, and they're doing that by building technologies or making acquisitions. But in the course of making those acquisitions, they're also causing a lot of disruption and confusion for their customers and their clients. What is the path forward? How do we bring our multiple systems together? So it's really changing the face of who the solution providers are in this market. Interestingly, as we have watched the evolution of technologies in the broader HCM space over the last 10 years, we have gone from a best-of-breed focus now to more of a focus on unified and integrated suites. Customers are finding that having that ability to not only manage an HR process or a payroll or a time and labor process, in the best way possible, that's not enough, but they actually need to have access to broader amounts of information, larger business workflows to bring more value into the organization. As I mentioned on the previous slide, mobility is a huge driver. It's a driver by the people who are working in your workforce, and it's a huge enabler in the technology market. And the fact is, the desktop is now mobile. People are using tablets and mobile phones, mobile devices, et cetera, to conduct work. Whether it's enabled or not within your organization, mobile is a new and increasingly popular way of getting work done, and getting access to information is all important. In fact, it's becoming pretty popular now that if you are unable to deliver mobile solutions within your technologies, you actually are viewed as behind the times. So it's something to be keeping informed of. But ultimately, everything is moving to the cloud. We've certainly seen in the last probably 8 years the emergence of SaaS, 8 to 10 years, the emergence of SaaS providers or cloud providers who are delivering solutions that don't require investments in IT technology, that are easily accessible through the web. And it's not just CRM systems, and it's not just commercial systems, but increasingly your HR applications have been moving into the space too, and email systems and other productivity solutions moving to the cloud. We have certainly seen the emergence of things moving to the cloud, and from an HCM perspective, it's pretty phenomenal. I have brought forward a couple of stats here for you. In our own research, we feel that close to 90% of the Global 2000 will be running at least one core business process in the cloud. And according to a survey by Morgan Stanley and a survey of CIOs earlier this year, they were saying that their investment in applications running in the cloud would be at 30%, so almost a third of their services would be done in the cloud compared to 14% just 1 year ago. So the growth here is really phenomenal. And what I think is interesting and important for payroll leaders to understand is that a lot of the growth in these technologies isn't coming necessarily from IT. In fact, it's estimated that up to 50% of investments in SaaS-based technologies are actually coming from line of business leaders, organizations outside of IT. Why? Because these are applications that really bring a lot of value into the organization. Business leaders are looking and saying, what's going to help me get my job and for my team and my business processes done better? And they are increasingly moving to SaaS-based technologies. So a couple more stats here really quickly. You can see earlier this year we said that the SaaS-based market is about a $14 billion market growing at 18%. In the HCM space, it's actually growing 2 to 3 times faster than the rest of the market, again, because of the recognition that having access to information, having very fast time to value for your investments. People are looking at their investments, their legacy technologies. They've had them for 10, 15 years. It's time to turn over their technologies. And they're not just looking at upgrades to their existing vendor. They're looking outside at the new opportunities that are available here in the marketplace. And what we are seeing is that the shift is already starting to take place. What I have here is a couple of views for you that show you the market ownership, essentially. If you look at the top 3 legacy HR vendors, the on-premise providers, and how their market share has declined from 2008 until the end of 2011, you see a significant drop, while the top 3 SaaS providers in this space have actually improved significantly and are really starting to gain traction. And the image at the bottom shows you a little bit more detail by some of the vendors. The bottom line here is that SaaS is moving into the mainstream for HCM applications across HR, across payroll, across all applications. It's interesting. We used to say that we would never put our data in the cloud, but obviously in the HCM space that is happening very frequently. We did a survey, one of our partners of Constellation Research, Computer Economics, recently concluded a technology survey. And they asked, one of the series of questions they asked was specific to payroll. You know, are you planning to make new investments, or are you considering making new investments over the course of the next 18 months? And if so, where are you thinking of investing? And you can see the results here. 40% of those who were looking to make a change in their payroll or some investment are now looking to invest in cloud solutions. Those who are going on-premise, many of them are upgrading to later releases, staying with their current vendor. But it's a phenomenal thing that just 10 years ago, these solutions in HCM didn't exist, and now 40% of all people who are looking to invest in payroll are seriously considering investing in the cloud. And the drivers are pretty clear. I mean, I've highlighted a couple of them for you here. So, you know, have access to greater usability, user experience, flexibility in processes, cost reductions, compliance and risk management. These are some of the things we're going to go over in detail here in just a few minutes. Now, really quickly, SaaS has been around for about 8 or 10 years, and yet the adoption, as you saw on those previous slides, is growing phenomenally. And yet there's still a lot of misconceptions about what the cloud brings and what it is. You know, hosting and SaaS, aren't they the same thing? Integrations are going to be different. It's difficult. It all costs the same, so what does it matter if I'm hosted or SaaS? I mean, so there's so many different misconceptions. And so what I wanted to do was really start here by saying, what is cloud computing? Really, ultimately, it's very simple. It's about accessing hardware and software services on demand over the Internet. It's really as simple as that. The vision behind cloud computing is very simple about eliminating all of those typical IT constraints that you have, limited resources, the time-consuming processes around maintenance and upgrades, and managing all those systems, and getting to freeing up your time and your resources so that you can pursue business growth and innovation. So cloud computing, a lot of people use cloud and SaaS interchangeably, and when you think of cloud computing, really it's this process. SaaS are the applications that run in the cloud, and the cloud is really the infrastructure or the hardware, wherever it is maintained, that allows the systems to be accessed. Now, I thought I'd put together a quick little chart because, you know, again, there is some confusion. Isn't SaaS a hosted solution? But it's not. SaaS is more than just outsourcing your IT applications. As you can see here, you know, where are the applications installed? You know, how many apps per server? Is this multi-tenant or single-tenant? Is it a dedicated instance for me? In a hosted environment, it typically is. In a pure SaaS multi-tenancy environment, it's not. Can you make modifications? Can you make configurations? So I've put together this chart really to help identify that SaaS is very similar to on-premise. It's very similar to hosted, but there are some significant differences that make it that bring some very, very unique and solid benefits that businesses should be considering today. So I think we should spend a little time to drill down into what those key benefits are. There are many, but I've tried to summarize them into what I call the top 6 benefits of managing your applications in the cloud. And these are going to be specific to payroll, although quite honestly, these benefits are pretty consistent across all applications that you might be using in your HCM environment. So we're going to focus here on the quality and cost and flexibility considerations, as well as compliance and controls and reporting and intelligence. Let's go ahead and start with the quality of experience. So one of the most commonly referred to benefits of SaaS, people move to SaaS because they say, we want a better user experience, right? User experience drives the adoption and success of applications within your enterprise. Certainly within the payroll area, the ability for employees to access and view their information, the ease with which information enters the system for downstream processing, that's highly, highly critical. Well, what's interesting is that SaaS applications are taking advantage of the lessons learned in the commercial space and bringing it forward into the applications that we deliver now within the enterprise. So here you see a couple of examples from some of the Workday screenshot and from some of the partners within the application. The bottom line here is we're seeing, you know, highly usable experiences, oftentimes mimicking the commercial applications of Facebook and other commercial applications. And it's actually been proven through several surveys, you know, Cedar Crestone and other industry surveys on usability, that routinely end users, buyer customers, give the edge to SaaS applications over on-premise applications for having a more modern and intuitive user interface, to having them be much more usable. And what's great, too, is that oftentimes SaaS providers will help you get to innovations such as mobile solutions for some of these processes much faster than your on-premise providers will. Another benefit or another aspect of usability and a good user experience, of course, is your own ability to control some of the workflows and the branding and the look and feel. And although in a SaaS environment you can't customize your software, you can certainly configure it. And that's where a lot of the SaaS providers have a tremendous strength. They templatize the configurations. Leaders in this space allow very deep configurations that make this an experience that isn't just appropriate, but really works and accelerates the experience that you want to deliver to your workforce. Another very important aspect about the quality of the solutions that you're deploying and why SaaS brings a unique benefit is that the pace of innovation is much faster in this particular environment. A couple of interesting stats here for you. The Cedar Crestone organization does their annual HR technology survey, and this actually came from their edition last year, this stat at the top of the page. And they found that when they asked people, are you current on your vendor's latest HCM release, HR, payroll, whatever the case was, as you would expect, licensed on-premise clients responded no. About a third of them were current. That's one of the biggest challenges with on-premise software is trying to embrace and adopt the latest technologies when they oftentimes consider large upgrades. Even in a hosted environment, there are challenges to getting current on your vendor's release, whereas on SaaS, many more buyers or clients are current. Now, this is an interesting thing. You would expect this number to be 100%, right? So why aren't 100% of SaaS customers current on their latest vendor's release? Well, the reasons are twofold. First off, interestingly, a lot of respondents oftentimes consider SaaS and hosted as the same thing, and so you're getting a little disruption of the data here. But I think the real piece of information coming out of this particular survey is that oftentimes SaaS vendors will deliver new functionality to their customers. All their customers are current, or perhaps they have a 3 to 4 month period to defer that, which makes them a little bit less SaaS, not quite multi-tenancy. But oftentimes new releases and functionality is delivered turned off. And so whereas technically, if the vendor were to answer this survey, they would say all customers are current. The reality is, unless customers have started turning on and taking advantage of it, their feature adoption is not current. And so I think that reflects some of this. Regardless of some of the errors or the considerations in the response, you can see a significant difference here between being current on SaaS versus on-premise solutions. And just as far as a pace of innovation, I brought forward a couple of examples, not to signal out any vendor in particular. There are many other ERP on-premise vendors who are issuing releases other than Oracle, SAP, and PeopleSoft. There are many other SaaS vendors besides Workday. But I thought it was interesting to look, over the course from 2006 forward, how many releases are these folks delivering? And it could be, in the case of SAP, it's their major release and their enhancements packs, and that's 7. That's a good number over the course of the last 6 years. Workday, for example, at 17, 18 on the way. I think the slide probably speaks for itself. So I'm going to move on. Cost optimization, obviously one of the top 3 drivers for moving to SaaS, and the reasons are obvious. Obviously, starting at the acquisition cost. There are no upfront costs. You don't have licensing fees. You don't have costs for supporting hardware and various requirements. There are certainly benefits of getting to implementation and getting to the go-live period much faster in SaaS. Another survey result here, you can see that on average, if you compare on-premise, hosted, and SaaS implementations, the SaaS implementations are happening on average 82% faster. And the reasons for that are many. It's everything from the templates that providers provide. And in a payroll environment, with all of the different rules and support and engines and interfaces that have to happen, that's hugely important. It's going to eliminate a significant amount of time during that pre-planning process. Also, the training as a result of all of this is significantly decreased. So a tremendous benefit here by leveraging the SaaS applications to quickly get your applications up and running much faster. Now, of course, during that whole process, in a SaaS environment, the vendor assumes all responsibilities for applying patches and fixes and anything that is found during the implementation process. And again, that further kind of eliminates the implementation time. The amount of staff that you need to support SaaS implementations significantly lower. Another example here showing the difference between on-premise, hosted, and SaaS. Now, hosted, obviously, much less IT requirement. That's one of the reasons you might outsource your technology. But when you also look at the efficiencies gained through SaaS and the fact that your SaaS provider is applying all of the maintenance updates, all of the legislative changes, and again, in payroll, this is hugely significant. No other organization across the HCM has the volume of changes, the frequency of changes as the payroll department organization does. And to have your SaaS vendor making all of those changes for you, doing the testing, applying that, before they roll it out to their customers, they can literally save days and weeks of time for your staff. And so that means less staff time for the client. It means less risk. The benefits and the cost reductions are pretty obvious. Another view, I won't go into a lot of details, but depending on your size, small, medium, large, you can see the number of FTEs and the number of employees on average that are served in these different models of on-premise versus SaaS. And again, I think the image speaks for itself as far as the value and the scale that you can achieve when you are deploying applications in a SaaS environment. So ultimately, there's a lot of talk from the cost perspective. What is the return on investment? Are these solutions really going to save significant value immediately and over time? And again, as I've said, I think from the starting point, at the very first implementation, the benefits are very clear. When you look over the long term, 1, 2, 3, 5, even 8 years down the line, will you save money? Is it really less expensive with SaaS versus on-premise? And almost always you'll find the answer is yes. When you think about, again, the minimal operational investment that you have to have as far as any of those upgrades and maintenance items, integration costs are significantly reduced and the whole process improved. If you look at all of the costs and the intangible costs and benefits, you will oftentimes find that SaaS is significantly less. Now, I'm hedging a little bit because I have actually seen from our own research in certain targeted areas and others, you'll see charts that show, well, actually, SaaS may end up costing you more because you're paying a subscription-based fee for software that you rent, perpetually. You rent, for the length of your usage, as opposed to buying and owning that software. But the reality is, you have to look beyond just those initial costs and think about what is the value of actually being current on your vendor's latest technology and the value of having access to those latest technologies, mobile capabilities, and so forth. What's the value of the productivity gains you save from those reduced FTEs? It's not just about reducing costs, but it's about the value that you deliver and that you create in moving to these systems. So I'm very comfortable, and I've seen enough surveys and enough customer feedback to say it is absolutely not just less expensive, but a greater benefit. But, of course, there's always going to be unique business considerations. You have to do the math and the calculations yourself. I encourage you, though, to look just beyond the hard dollars and really evaluate the intangibles as well. Now, another top benefit of SaaS is flexibility. When we talk about flexibility, we're looking at the ability to scale your operations, to easily connect with other systems and providers, to provide the support that you need in your business processes, to quickly take advantage of emerging global opportunities, whether it's opportunities to staff in new areas or to link with partners who provide solutions and support that you might need to operate in a particular global region. And all of these are aspects of flexibility. So let me start by talking a little bit about, kind of the first piece that comes to mind in a SaaS environment and flexibility is really the fact that the actual underlying technology and the system's processing support and how it can flex within a SaaS environment. So traditionally, when you are deploying systems in an on-premise environment, you're buying and you're investing in your IT technologies to support your planned business processes. But oftentimes there could be unplanned changes, mergers and acquisitions or divestitures. Or maybe there's planned changes. You've got 2 months of high utilization because you're a retail provider who's scaling up your staff during the holidays. The reality is your on-premise solutions are typically funded with fixed technologies, whereas your SaaS solutions, they can quickly add or remove processing support as needed in the organization. And, again, so you never have to worry about overload on your system. That's what the SaaS vendor is there to support. Changing processes, operational challenges like compliance mandates and changing employee demands, et cetera, all of these can impact the daily operations in the payroll organization. And it's really critical that you've got systems that will flex with you process-wise, technology size, and processing speed, et cetera, so that you are not constrained in your success. Now, integration is part of flexibility as well. It's a key benefit, but interestingly, many times people talk about SaaS applications from a concern perspective. Can these applications really meet our needs? I think the concern around integration historically has come from the challenges we've faced as organizations trying to tie together payroll data from a bunch of different systems, from many different in-country payrolls or payroll aggregators, bringing payroll data back from our outsourcing solutions back into our HR applications. And historically, a lot of that work was manual, or it was run through middleware technology that had a poor user interface or a lot of different challenges. That concern and those experiences have caused a lot of people to be concerned about what is it going to be like to interface to all of my partners and systems and solutions if I move my applications to the cloud. But the reality is cloud applications, cloud computing actually makes integration much easier. So the SaaS vendors will take on the integration challenge. They're going to manage it within their payroll offering if they're a SaaS payroll provider, or they'll be utilizing the integration platforms in the cloud of their partners. But the bottom line is this is an issue, this is a challenge that's managed for you as a customer of the SaaS solution. Pre-built connectors are starting points. They often provide in the payroll area the connections and the data extracts and the mapping and things, error handling and such that you need to get those integrations started. They're not static. They are certainly extensible, and that's, again, one of the benefits of these integration cloud platforms through your SaaS providers is that they can be configured, not customized, which is important because that locks you into old processes, but configured to extend to your company's needs. And leading solutions in this space are really looking at aggregating data across all payroll solutions, multiple providers, multiple countries, et cetera. But they still let the data be viewed in your choice. They still let you have control, whether you want to view payroll data that's aggregated from many systems in local currencies, in your company currency, you have that control. So the integration services also oftentimes provide a platform for third parties. So as third parties want to build out integrations, they have the tools to do that and ensure that those integrations are happening. The point of this conversation around integration is that when you think about these integrations being done in the cloud, it's very scalable and it actually accelerates your business processes. Once a vendor builds the integration, it's supported for all of their clients. So imagine the benefit for you if you are looking for integrations to benefit providers or payroll aggregators or different vendors. As your SaaS provider builds that integration for another company, it becomes available to you. And if you're looking to expand globally, it gives you access to the pre-built integrations as well as future build integrations. If you are the company who's driving the requirement for a new integration to be built, that can be managed, and then the benefit for others is that it becomes available to them. So an important piece here is that this isn't just about processing data and processing payroll and making sure that those integrations happen. When you're using these systems, it actually helps you as the payroll administrator, the payroll function, become much more strategic to the organization. And that happens because now suddenly you have the ability to quickly, through the cloud integrations, to quickly add connections to the local service providers or to aggregators in the area who can ensure that you can connect to those systems and conduct business. So if your company is looking to expand into new markets and wants to move into a new region or a new country, because of the ease and speed of integration in the cloud, you will not be a barrier to that success. You can say, absolutely, we can process payroll for these people. Directly, indirectly, we can bring that information back, whatever approach you take, and provide full visibility into the results. We will not be a barrier to these strategic initiatives of the organization. This is something you don't have in your on-premise technologies. The integrations are so much more challenging and convoluted and costly. This acceleration of access and integration to other solutions is a real strategic advantage for organizations and really changes the game, I think, for payroll providers. Risk mitigation is a huge concern. You know, I have security here on this screen showing that it's a top benefit, but it's also commonly cited as a top concern. The reality is, across all of these areas, security, reliability, disaster recovery, data privacy and compliance, many people have been concerned that once they move their data off-premise, the risks are much greater. But the truth is, by their very nature of serving thousands, hundreds or thousands of clients, SaaS providers are tested much more routinely, more deeply, more often than you will ever be tested in your own on-premise environment. Their systems have been hardened, whether it's how they're storing the data, identity management, access controls, disaster recovery solutions, testing for hacking and viruses and different pieces. SaaS providers have to deal with and have to certify across these issues and are tested by their clients and by the industry much more than you will be within your organization. And so the reality is security and the risk mitigation is much easier and better in a SaaS environment than within an on-premise environment. And if you're using outsourcing, again, there are certainly benefits of outsourcers also looking to achieve and driving a lot of security hardening. But again, these SaaS vendors are truly experts and tested in the market. I'll tell you a very brief story that years ago I was working with a SaaS vendor, and they were working. It was from an external perspective. A SaaS vendor had a client who actually themselves was in the security business. And this client came to them and said, we need to have this level of security or we can't use you as a vendor. And it was much more than the industry requirements required. It was much higher level of security and hardening of their solutions than the industry standards. But the SaaS vendor worked with that client, made those changes, and made sure that they met that client's requirements. The benefit here, again, from SaaS is that every subsequent client of that SaaS vendor benefited from that effort. And that's part of the scale here that happens in a SaaS environment. What happens for one is beneficial to all of the clients. Now, we've got just a couple more key benefits here that I want to touch on very briefly. I'm cognizant of the time here. But you might be concerned that if you move your business processes into the cloud, do you have the same level of control that you've had in the past? And the reality is, you're probably going to have more control. In fact, I can guarantee you'll have more control if your current processes are managed in an outsourced environment. So you certainly have the same level of control as if you're managing your processes on-premise, right? You have control over when payroll is run, when different processes happen. But you actually have more control even than in your on-premise environment because the SaaS vendor is applying all of those updates for you. You also don't have to wait for your own IT organization to schedule in your technology maintenance updates. The vendor is doing that for you. So you actually have more control. Again, if you're using outsourcing, you definitely have freedom from, following the specific schedules. You don't have to work within a specific window of time to submit your payroll changes or to ensure its accuracy. You're not constrained to those windows of time that your outsourcing provider is giving you. So you definitely have improved controls over some of these processes. I mentioned improved controls over financials. The fact is that when you are using SaaS providers and you have access to the reports that you need, you suddenly have the ability now to look at the variances from what's expected before payroll is run, right after. You don't have to wait days or a week or so to get the final results. And so you have a much faster view into what's happening in your organization, whether you're U.S.-based only or you're actually managing payroll across the globe. And ultimately, a lot of these systems do provide integration to broader HCM applications. And so, of course, operating these systems yourself, you have the full access to all of the benefits of your HR, payroll, or time and labor, and other systems. And ultimately, what does that do? It gives you better business insight. So by working with your SaaS vendor, you haven't lost control of the access to your information. You are not under the constraints of your service bureau provider, who may provide you only limited reports or charge you for specialized or customized reports. And many of these solutions will, as I said earlier, will aggregate your payroll data back into your systems in a way that you can manage and slice and dice this information to really get to not only the payroll costs, but the workforce costs, and to do some better forecasting. And when you are able to combine this data with your core HR data, you get to much better insights into what's happening in your organization, and you become a much more strategic partner to the company. So getting to the strategic view does require a consolidated view. Not a lot of organizations have a core system of record. You can see there's a slight increase here over the course of the last years. But the reality is it comes back to that story of integration that we talked about, aggregating data, using the integration platforms. There are platforms that exist today that are standalone, but leading SaaS providers have very comprehensive and flexible integration platforms. So integration is really a key part of having quality of operations, having flexibility, and ultimately getting to business intelligence. Now, I want to just talk really, really quickly. I know we're running out of time, but just a couple of quick thoughts before we turn this over to look at a couple of customer examples. Your system, your payroll delivery, perhaps you're delivering payroll for U.S. only or North America, or perhaps you're delivering payroll for multiple companies, multiple countries, whether it's 2, 3, or 50 or 100 different countries. You're probably considering and working with any number of these different components of your solution. You may be leveraging a global payroll system of your ERP provider, and most likely that's an on-premise solution. You may be using in-country payroll providers or some combination of in-country and aggregators, payroll aggregators who are working with many smaller providers, aggregating that data and working with you. Perhaps you're outsourcing, or perhaps you're leveraging some series of aggregation or integration components to bring your SaaS payroll for one company in with many other countries. So the fact is there's a lot of different components. And when you think about, the pros and cons, there are definitely pros and cons of each of these solutions. Obviously, a global payroll solution is great. The challenges, though, that it brings is a lot of the on-premise challenge. You're not necessarily on the latest release other than for legs and regs. There are overhead expenses, et cetera. The local in-country providers, great. They're great for the long tail. But what that oftentimes does, though, is it could challenge your reporting capability from a global perspective. Ultimately, there are many different approaches here, and what you want to think about is what's the right solution for your organization. I think we've talked a lot about the benefits and the pros and cons of SaaS solutions in a pure play, standalone kind of approach, but I wanted to do a little comparison between hosting and BPO type providers. And I said this at the start of the presentation. Hosting, folks, is not SaaS. There are a lot of benefits of hosting. You reduce your IT staff. You have some lower costs. You reduce your infrastructure and IT, et cetera. But you don't have the benefits that you get from SaaS when it comes to agility and speed. You're not necessarily on the latest version of the software. You certainly don't have the ease of upgrades and maintenance. You still have that responsibility. It's, the ease of use, lower cost, some of that is quite questionable. And for many organizations who are moving to BPO or who are currently using, business processing outsourcing, obviously, the drivers here are significant. This is a $14 billion industry, global payroll business process outsourcing. And so with that kind of size, obviously, there's a lot of good stuff going on, process standardization, the ability to outsource that function and focus on your core business processes. But the reality is there are some emerging challenges to even this particular model. A lot of people move to BPO because of the ability to reduce labor expenses. BPOs leverage labor arbitrage and low-cost labor in other countries, but even that is becoming less of a capability as there are more and more challenges for labor overseas, and that low-cost labor is not as available as it used to be. Global scale and reach, that's actually not a differentiator for the BPO providers that it used to be, because your cloud solutions are able to provide this more and more. Improve quality and service. The fact is a lot of the lift and shift processes that took our applications over to the BPO have constrained our ability to really significantly improve quality and service. And yet if you're using a SaaS-based application, you've left that legacy behind. So the reality is, if you're thinking or using outsourcing, the value proposition is shifting. There's still a tremendous amount of value there for sure, but you have to make sure that your outsourcing is really going to deliver more efficient processes. It truly has lower cost structures, and it has better IT. And what's interesting is that more and more outsourcers are actually leveraging the SaaS solutions within their platform, adding actually a layer of complexity onto what really should be a pretty straightforward usage by you of these technologies. So a couple of slides just to end. I know we've covered a tremendous amount of information today, and I hope that, as you prepare to walk away from today's, 50 minutes of conversation, you're really, really thinking about, what are we getting from SaaS? If we're on premise or we're currently hosted, what could we get if we move to SaaS? And I tried to summarize it here a little bit for you. On the positive side, where the green plus is, it does eliminate your IT technology expenses, support. It's definitely a cost-efficient move for you. It has the mindset of providing updates as opposed to upgrades, and that's a significant mind shift. You're getting these continuous updates to the software, to the capabilities, to the legs and regs, et cetera. Continuous innovation. You have anytime access. You are not constrained by service provider timeframes. It's accessed over the web usually on any device. It accelerates integration, et cetera, all the benefits we've talked about. I put in kind of the caution area at the top, configuration over customization. So you cannot customize your SaaS solutions, and for many people, that's a concern. How do you have the processes that you absolutely must have if you can't customize the software? But we all know what a dead-end customization is. It makes it hard to move forward with your solutions in the future. Configuration. If your SaaS provider has very robust configuration capabilities that really let you leverage and tailor as much as possible those flows, the look and feel, et cetera, within that solution, that is a scalable way for you to go. And you have to make sure as you make these choices that you are comfortable configuring within the constraints of the system that your SaaS provider offers you. Now, if you're currently outsourced and you're thinking about a move to SaaS, obviously you're going to lose the business process, the business services that an outsourcer provides. And maybe that's not what you're ready for. But on the flip side, you get much greater access to your applications. You're free from their constraints. You regain control of your processes. And you certainly have deeper reporting and information access across all of your users to drive better decisions in the organization. So really, again, quite a bit of information here. But if you're thinking about a move, this is just really reiterating what are some of the things you need to be thinking about. Customers who are making these moves need to explore everything from adaptability and flexibility, the timing of these releases, all the security considerations, and so forth. A little look as we move into the future, and I think this is part of the innovation story. Social enablement of processes, it is coming, and it's coming for payroll and time and labor and core workforce management technologies. Social isn't just about how do you improve, talent management processes. It is coming into the payroll area. In fact, we did a survey here at Constellation, and almost 70% of the vendors that we've spoken to do have this on their roadmap. So be prepared to take advantage of it, right? Your SaaS providers, I know Workday for one. We've talked a little bit about where they're going with this in the future, many others as well. Think about how are you going to help bring innovation and new processes into the organization. Is your on-premise technology going to take you there? at all, or will they take you there as fast as you would like? And then another completely unrelated from this topic, but very important, I think, for the payroll organization to consider is what's the future hold for you relative to SaaS? Just as kind of an afterthought, I put together a little look at the jobs that are posted out in Indeed.com. And I was looking at jobs for payroll administrators, and you can see, the payroll administrator, pretty steady on the rise. Core payroll jobs looks kind of sketchy. But then I looked at SaaS payroll and SaaS payroll administration, and you see a phenomenal jump in the availability and the posting of jobs. The message to you guys here is this: future-proof your own career. Look at the move in the industry to embrace and adopt SaaS for your organization. But for you personally, working in these systems, future-proof your career. Something to think about. All right, so I've talked a lot. Laurent, we do want to hear a little bit about what's happening in the industry with your customers. Tell us a little bit about how your customers are actually making this happen. And I think I've just passed controls over to you, Laurent, so I hope you have control.
Thank you, Yvette. Yeah, I'm just trying to get back to the next slide. Okay.
Excellent.
So very quickly, let's look at payroll in the cloud from a Workday perspective. So I would like really to share with the audience here is what is our strategic view of handling payroll from a Workday perspective. So the benefits of moving payroll to the cloud are really the same than running HCM in the cloud. All our customers are on the same code and same platform, and the nice thing is that it's built once and shared by all customers. All our payroll customers on the current release, there is no upgrade cost to go to the next one. And the nice thing is that all these updates are maintained by the vendors, not the customers. In addition, you can leverage a unified HCM and payroll solution for US and Canada, same platform, same user interface, and a high pace for innovation. And for customers that want to outsource their payroll, they can also move their payroll to the cloud and outsource it. For example, OneSource Virtual is a Workday partner, and they offer payroll outsourcing services on the Workday payroll platform. And the benefits of outsourcing services on the cloud payroll platform versus the legacy services bureau is that there is no file transmission required between two platforms. There is no need to wait after 2 days to get the payroll result back from the vendor. In the cloud, as soon as the outsourcer runs payroll, it is available for the customer to review it and perform audits. From a global perspective, as Yvette alluded to it, a best practice, what we do at Workday really is to build certified integration with the leading global payroll vendors. For example, at Workday, we're in the process of building a certified integration with global vendors such as Safeguard Worldwide, Norgate Arinzo, Patterson's, and Celeco. These global payroll vendors provide payroll solutions for more than 100 countries. These integrations are bidirectional. All the HR data changes are sent to the payroll solution for payroll processing, and when the payroll is completed, the payroll results are sent back to HCM for global payroll reporting purposes. The nice thing again is about the cloud is that these integrations are built once and shared by all customers. They are supported by the vendors, not the customers. The customers don't have anymore to maintain this integration with dozens of vendors and update them or upgrade them when needed. It's all done by the vendors. I will skip very quickly for that slide here. Again, the value of the cloud, complete control, choice and flexibility, and actionable side. In the next 3 minutes that we have, I would really scan through a couple of use cases. The first one is Mackie Food, and this is a customer that went from a legacy on-premises solution to the cloud, and you can read the benefits here when they went to Workday. One thing I would highlight is that one of the key benefits that they got was regarding the updates. When Mackie signed for Workday, they were spending a significant amount of money to upgrade their solution. So when they moved to Workday, they didn't really trust that these updates will be so easy to handle, so they were cautious and they budgeted some spending to support the update processes. And really, when they moved on to Workday and went through a few updates, they were very surprised to find that they could manage themselves all the updates with no external help and at zero additional cost. So great benefits from a payroll processing and update process. Second and last use case here is Lifetime Fitness. This is a different customer. They went from a service bureau solution to Workday, so they had a different approach. And really what they valued in moving to Workday was the unified platform and really the ability for them to control and build all their calculation rules. Their prior service bureau solution couldn't handle all the complex payroll calculations, so they had to use their time and attendance solution to do some of the payroll calc and complete it into their payroll solution. With Workday, they pretty much very simplified their processes. They were able to configure in Workday all the calculation, minimum wage adjustment, PTO rates for commissioned individuals, tip credits, and even some sales personal training calculation. They have now full control and flexibility over this calculation. On the payroll processing side, they were able to move there from a 7 days processing window to a 4 days processing window. And their payroll processing did require before 48 hours elapsed time between the time HR payroll data was sent to the service bureau vendor and the time they got it back. They now process payroll themselves in less than an hour. I think that we don't have time for questions, unfortunately, but we really had some great content. I think there was one question I would address here was, will there be a demo of features of the Workday program? So what I can share with the audience is that you can go to the Workday website, and we have product preview that you can run on the payroll product and the global payroll product as well. And on a monthly basis, we have a Workday Live for Payroll, which is a live demo of our payroll solution. So I want to encourage you really to go to the website and spot the next demo coming.
Hey, Laurent,
I would like now
Laurent, I'm sorry. I do have a question. I know we're at the last minute or two, but I did see a question about security, and I know you can't answer all of it. The question is, how do you really prevent and manage security? Obviously, I said vendors are have hardened. Have you got a place on your website you can point people to, how you address security issues and how you're certified?
Yeah, we have some white paper posted on our website. Typically when we talk to customers, this is the very first question that comes through there. So, as you said in your section, you have all the vendors have gone a long way, but yes, if they go to our website, they should be able to find, and we also have some webinar that will address the technical aspects, including security.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining. Obviously, we'd have loved to have more time. There's so much content to share about payroll and the cloud, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. We hope you've enjoyed today's session. Look forward to engaging with you all in the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's presentation. Remember, a replay of this event will be uploaded onto Workday.com within 3 business days, so you can come back and review it later. You may now disconnect your lines. Thank you, and have a great day.